October 13, 1972, a plane vanishes over the Andes. "45 people are on board, including a Uruguayan rugby team. To the world, they are already dead." Search planes fly the exact route twice and see nothing. After 8 days, the search is officially called off. At 4,000 meters in minus 30 degrees and with no food, the officials say survival is simply not possible. They were very wrong. What happened on that mountain over the next 72 days would become one of the most extreme survival stories ever recorded. It all starts in Montevideo, Uruguay. The Old Christians Rugby Club charters a plane to Santiago, Chile for a friendly match. These are friends, teammates, and a few relatives on this epic trip. The aircraft of choice is a Fairchild FH-227, a twin-engine, quite reliable, but underpowered for mountain flying. The first signs of a doomed trip come after bad weather. Over the Andes forces a stopover in Mendoza, Argentina. Unbothered, they decide to wait a night. The next day, they take off again. To cross the Andes safely in this aircraft, the crew has to fly a specific route, south around the highest peaks, then take a hard turn north at a checkpoint called Curicó in Chile. Here is where it starts to go wrong. Strong headwinds slow the plane down more than the instruments can account for. The co-pilot believes that they've already passed Curicó. He radios the tower and asks to begin descending towards Santiago. Although clearance is granted, the plane hasn't passed Curicó. It's still deep inside the mountain range, closed in by peaks on every side, and it has just been cleared to descend straight into these ranges. As the plane drops through the clouds, turbulence hits hard. Some of the players laugh it off. Then someone looks out the window and sees a wall of black rock, close enough to touch. The pilots see it too, and they push the throttle to full, trying to climb over the ridge. For 1 second, it looks like they might clear it. They don't. The right wing clips the mountain. The impact tears the entire tail section away. Seats, crew, and 3 passengers were gone in an instant. What's left of the plane, no tail, still moving forward on momentum alone, clips a second rock face. The left wing rips off too. The wingless fuselage slams onto a glacier and slides for almost half a mile at over 200 miles an hour before grinding to a stop in a snowbank. 12 people are dead within minutes, including the pilot in command. The survivors climb out into cold snow up to their knees at 12,000 feet in temperatures already dropping toward 30 below. They are not anywhere near Chile. In fact, they're still inside Argentina, about 80 kilometers off the planned route, on a glacier that doesn't even have a name on a map. The environment starts working against them immediately. At this altitude, oxygen is scarce, called hypoxia. The heart beats faster just to move blood. Breathing becomes labored. Even a small task, like lifting a broken seat, takes far more effort than it should. To survive the first few hours, they needed to take care of the cold and food situation. Cold is the first real enemy here. With no heating and a gaping hole where the tail used to be, the fuselage loses heat fast. Survivors strip seat covers for blankets and jam suitcases into the opening to try and block the cold wind currents. Next, water is an issue, and eating snow directly is dangerous because it drops core body temperature and speeds up hypothermia. So they come up with a genius improvisation. Polished metal seat frames are turned into makeshift mirrors and then angled to catch sunlight and melt snow, and the water collected in empty wine bottles. It's their first real victory against the mountain. But the challenges ahead still remain quite daunting. 2 passengers on board happen to be medical students, Roberto Canessa and Gustavo Zerbino, which turns out to be an unexpected blessing. With no medicine and almost no supplies, they decide to use crude methods and start treating the injured with torn clothing and whatever they can find. One man has a piece of metal driven into his stomach, and when they remove it, inches of intestine come with it. He's back on his feet within the hour, helping someone else. Food is almost non-existent. Between them, they have a few chocolate bars, some crackers, 2 jars of jam for 28 survivors. It will last less than a week. 1 day passes, then 2. 10 days pass. The waiting to be rescued starts becoming its own kind of torture. They try writing SOS on the fuselage roof using lipstick found in someone's bag, but there isn't enough lipstick to make the letters big enough to see from a plane, and the white fuselage disappears into the white snow anyway. Then, while sorting through scattered luggage, someone finds a small transistor radio. It's a good find, but it's dead on arrival because the mountains and cold swallow any signal. Roy Harley, one of the students, has some electronics knowledge. With no tools, he strips wiring from the wreck and builds a crude antenna, stretching it out across the snow. Hours pass in total silence, then static. A voice. A Chilean station comes through. The search for the Uruguayan flight has been officially called off. After 10 days at this altitude, authorities have concluded no one could still be alive. For a moment, the group breaks. To the outside world, they are already dead. No one is coming to save them. Then one of the players, Gustavo Nikolic, stands up and says something that changes the entire mood of the group. If nobody's coming for them, that means one thing is now certain. Getting out of these mountains is entirely up to them. It's a strange kind of hope, but from that point on, the group stops waiting and starts fighting. 16 days after the crash, close to midnight, an avalanche comes down the mountain and hits the fuselage directly while everyone is asleep. Snow fills the cabin almost to the ceiling in seconds. 8 more people suffocate and die in their sleep, including the team captain who had held the group together from day 1. The survivors, still breathing, are packed shoulder to shoulder in a collapsing metal tube, running out of air. One of them grabs a metal pole from the luggage rack and stabs upward through the packed snow, desperately trying to break through to open air before everyone inside suffocates. It works. A shaft of light breaks through, but outside, a full blizzard is raging. They have to seal themselves back in and wait 3 more days, buried alive, sharing the wreckage with the bodies of the people they just lost. 19 people in total are now dead. The body's fat reserves are already gone. Without new nutrients, muscle loss is next. In this cold, at this altitude, the body burns close to double the calories it normally would, just to stay warm. There are no plants here, no animals, nothing to hunt, nothing to forage, just snow and rock in every direction for miles. Which leaves one option. Preserved by the freezing cold, outside the wreckage are the bodies of their friends, their teammates, and for some, their own relatives. It takes days of argument, prayer, and agony before anyone can bring themselves to do it. Some worry it's an unforgivable sin. Others argue their faith points the opposite way, that giving your body to save someone you love is close to the center of what they believe. Eventually, a pact is made. If anyone else dies, the rest have permission to use their body to survive. This is perhaps the best decision the survivors make during this moment, because without some sort of nourishment, no one would have the strength left to walk out of these mountains at all. 2 months pass. The group is now down to 16. It's clear that staying put means everyone dies once the spring thaw changes the snowpack. 3 of the fittest survivors, Nando Parrado, Roberto Canessa, and Antonio Vizintin, decide their only real option is to walk out on foot and find civilization themselves. They spend weeks preparing, hand-sewing plain insulation into a crude sleeping bag using a sewing kit pulled from someone's makeup case. They have no map, no compass, and no climbing gear of any kind. On December 12th, about 61 days after the crash, they start climbing straight up a wall of snow and ice, believing green Chilean valleys are only a few miles past the ridge. 3 exhausting days later, they reach the summit, over 4,600 meters. Parrado looks out, expecting to see the end of the mountains. Instead, he sees more mountains in every direction, stretching as far as the horizon. Turning back means dying with everyone else on a schedule. Continuing means their odds get worse the longer 3 people share dwindling rations. Vizintin makes the call. He turns back, leaving his share of the food with the other 2 so they can keep going without him. Parrado and Canessa keep walking. For 9 more days, they descend, sleeping through freezing nights, crammed into one shared sleeping bag, rationing scraps of meat they carried down from the crash site. Slowly, the altitude drops. The air gets easier to breathe, snow gives way to rock, then to the sound of running water. It isn't safety yet, but for the first time in weeks, the landscape stops looking like a death sentence. On the 9th day, they reach the bank of a roaring river. The water is too loud to shout over. And on the other side, a man on horseback. It isn't a hallucination. It's a Chilean cattle herder named Sergio Catalán. They wave and they scream, but the river drowns every word. Catalán realizes something is wrong and throws a stone across the river, wrapped with a scrap of paper and a pencil. Parrado writes back the message that ends 72 days of silence. He's a survivor of the plane that crashed in the mountains months ago. 14 more people are still alive up there, badly injured, starving, and running out of time. When Catalán reads it, he understands exactly what he's holding. It was proof that the Uruguayan flight everyone assumed was a closed case is still somehow an open rescue. He rides 10 hours to reach the nearest police outpost. From there, word moves fast, up through the Chilean army to the helicopter crews on standby. On December 22nd, 1972, 72 days after the crash, the first helicopters reached the wreckage. The terrain is too steep to land fully, and pilots have to balance on a single skid against the mountainside. Weight limits mean not everyone can be lifted out at once. Half the survivors are taken out that day. 4 rescuers volunteer, decide to stay behind overnight with the remaining 8. One last freezing night on the mountain before the helicopters return at dawn. On December 23rd, the last of the 14 remaining survivors are lifted off the glacier for good. 16 people out of the 45 who boarded that plane in Montevideo come home safely. When the story reaches the world, most headlines fixate on one detail, that the survivors had to eat the bodies of the dead to stay alive. But the people who lived through it have always told it differently. It is not as a story of savagery, but as a story about exactly how far a group of ordinary young people will go to take care of each other when every rational reason to give up is staring them in the face. Of the 19 rugby players who boarded Flight 571, 7 made it home, and some of them are alive today. Every year, some of them go back to that mountain, not as a place of horror, but as the place where they learned precisely how far human beings will go for each other to survive. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. And if you want more true survival stories like this one, subscribe and like, because this was just the beginning of what we have in store. We will be bringing incredible stories about human survival every week.